What I want to do for you today is just tell you my own personal recipe for dealing with a bad political world. A recipe for your own mental health when things are really, really hard or not as you would like them to be. Welcome to the Sunlight Podcast. In this show, we're talking about taxes, money, and careers for self-employed people who have a big vision for changing the world with their work. I'm your host, Hannah Cole, artist, tax pro, and the founder of Sunlight Tax. If you're a creative or soul-centered entrepreneur or wellness practitioner who wants to grow your business sustainably, manage your taxes, and build a stash of fuck you money so you can control your time and have a bigger impact with your work, you are in the right place. Hello, I am coming to you from Folly Beach, South Carolina, taking a week away after the election to just be with people in real life and just like tend to myself as a human after what has been a truly rough and awful 2 months. But I want to talk to you today specifically about that exact thing, tending to yourself as a human. I know this election, for probably most of you listening, was pretty rough. There are bright spots, truly, there are bright spots in some of the local election results. And I do really encourage you to look at those if you're going to look at anything, because all is not lost, all hope is not extinguished. And that is really, really important to hold on to. But what I want to do for you today is just tell you my own personal recipe for dealing with a bad political world, a recipe for your own mental health when things are really, really hard or not as you would like them to be. I'm going to be honest with you, like I've already been in the middle of bad before this election happened. I've been doing my best to volunteer and knock on doors and still be politically active and engaged and do my part in making sure that the election went the way that I hoped it would. And, there is actually some good news out of Western North Carolina, to be honest. If you listen to this really wonderful podcast interview between Jon Stewart and Heather Cox Richardson, who's like a political historian, they have a really wonderful conversation about what happened in this election. And they actually even shout out Western North Carolina, because one of the interesting things that happened here, where I live in my community, is that all the news shut down. Internet cell service was out for a while, and so everybody had to get their news from the same place. So we were operating from the same set of facts, and it actually shows up in the election results. This is a pretty interesting little moment that if you find yourself curious about the election, which I am when I'm not depressed, it's an interesting thing. I think it's really worth examining. So I'm going to put a link to that particular podcast episode in my show notes. I encourage you to listen to it, partly because it is a low noise, high historical context podcast. And to me, that is the only kind I want to listen to right now. So take heart in what is good, hold dear what is good. Don't throw everything out because a lot feels bad. I really encourage you. But I'm going to give you today my own personal recipe for mental health when times are hard. And let me just take some space to say, for a lot of you out there right now, times are hard. Things are hard and bad, and the world looks very bleak. And I want to encourage you to take whatever space you need. We've got some time. The world will move on. If you don't look at the news or engage in a single political discussion for 2 weeks, the world will move on and be fine. So take a break. I really encourage you to take a break. Just, take the break to remind yourself about nature, sunshine, exercise, cooking, sleeping, your family, people that you love. I think this is one of the paths to just getting your head right, your heart right, and building up, refilling your cup and rebuilding your strength for, what may be a pretty long fight ahead. All right, so here's my personal recipe. This is sad to say I've already had practice with this because, when the election happened in 2016, I really, I lost my mind. I didn't know how I was going to handle it. I know I'm not alone in that, but I really tried to triage things and it worked for me. And actually some real good came out of the way that I responded in 2016 for me personally. And if you are a beneficiary of anything that Sunlight Tax has done, then for you as well, because one of the responses I had was I'm going to really focus on something I can control and I'm going to do the best work that I can in the world. And in this case, that meant building Sunlight Tax. So I went all in on business education, business podcasts, learning strategy, learning techniques, learning how to communicate better, learning the technical back end parts of running a business. And I feel really proud, honestly. I think if the awful election results of 2016 had not come down, I don't know that Sunlight Tax, the business, would have been as good because I really put my head down and got to work and tried to focus on it because I care. Something I can control is serving someone like you, somebody caring, somebody empathetic, somebody trying to put good into the world. Also, somebody who is probably from a historically marginalized group, someone who has felt maybe left out of a financial conversation, who might have some mindset issues around money, and who really might need that empathetic hand-holding that values who you are, right? So that you can make your particular work really thrive. So that is some good that came from the awful election 8 years ago. And I think we could all maybe take a page from that starting today. So here's my recipe. So number one is something that my mother has always said to me. She would always say this to me after I had, a bad breakup or, a job loss or some pretty devastating personal loss, right? My mother would say, tend to the machinery. And what that means is, when you are in the bleakest of bleak, when you're going through grief, through loss, through terrible sadness, I think it's a good idea to just look at your biggest job, and it may feel really hard as, caring for the machinery of your body. So, you might not be able to focus on anything else. You might not have a single happy thought in your head, but just try to get some sleep. Try to eat some healthy meals. Try to hug a friend, get some comfort where you can, right? Get some exercise. So those basic things, if you can just not let your health fall apart when your brain is falling apart, it's helpful. It helps you stay more on track, than if you let it all go. So tend to the machinery. This is one that has served me through every breakup, every hardship, and it serves in this moment. So, the day may be feeling bleak and awful, but get a good walk in, lift some weights, have a meal with something healthy in it, and try to go to bed early if you can. All right. Also, another one, take a break, right? Take a break. Be kind to yourself. There's no reason that you need to go full force when things are really hard and awful, when you're feeling sad. You can slow down a little bit. So if you need to, slow down. Take a rest, take a break. That could be something small. That could be taking a break in the middle of an hour to go do a quick walk around the building, get a little sun on your face. It could be a longer break, like maybe for 2 weeks, you kind of do a little more of the minimum and you don't work as hard as you normally do. Whatever a break looks like to you, I think it's helpful to just get you back to just a state of being okay. Refill your cup. You want to just do what you can to refill your cup. right? And I'll tell you what I told my daughters on the morning of the recent election. They were so sad, so depressed. We were walking to school and it felt like going to a funeral. And I just stopped them both right there on the sidewalk and I said, listen, I know that this feels awful. Feel your feelings. They are real, they are heavy. It's okay. And I want you to feel them as much as you need to. But also, you are not required to live your life in misery. You're not required to perform your misery and your bad feelings outwards to the world. You're allowed to feel however you do feel. And it is more important now than ever to reconnect with your sense of joy and the feeling of what is precious in your life and to hold it close. And in fact, the more joy you can conjure and you can find in this dark moment, the better you will be, the more it will fill your cup, bring you light, bring you energy. And, we're going to have to put our big girl pants on and get back to work. So you really want to bring the joy if you are capable of doing it. So I will say, I think this is good advice. I really think that finding your joy to whatever degree you are capable of doing it is a good idea right now. You don't need to perform misery out to the world. I don't think performing your feelings is really particularly healthy, though social media might want you to do it. You're allowed to feel how you feel. And if you're having a moment of joy, don't suppress it out of some sense that you should be feeling more awful, right? I think, there's a lot of liberation in joy. There's a whole movement of Black joy, which I have found absolutely delightful and wonderful. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather come to the party where joy is being served than any other party. So it may feel really hard. It actually may feel like the hardest thing you do all day. But I really encourage you to remind yourself of the things that you like. These could be tiny. These could be sunshine on your face. They could be a little piece of candy you steal out of your kid's Halloween bag. That's me speaking here. It could be an exercise class. It could be your best friend. It could be a really silly joke that you share with your friends. Whatever it is, small, large, hold it tight, conjure it as much as you can. In fact, as a sidebar to that, when things are really awful and I'm in such a state that I can't absorb any news or any information at all, and believe me, I've been in that state quite a bit in the last 2 months, I really love to turn to stand-up comedy. Sheng Wang, if you have not seen his Netflix special, Sweet and Juicy, oh my God. I owe a lot of my mental health to the comedian Sheng Wang. I highly encourage you to check him out if you love the idea of this like guy who sort of rides a hilarious line between gangster and like dorky dad. He is so funny. So Sheng Wang just escaping into the arts is one of the things I like to do. I will listen to music, and when I really want to check all the way out, I go for stand-up comedy, preferably non-topical. And yeah, and then sometimes I just want to like listen to angry music, and that works for me too. I've been listening to Wave of Mutilation. I've also been listening to a lot of Modest Mouse. The song that speaks to me these days is called Polar Opposites, and the chorus goes, I'm trying to drink away the part of the day that I cannot sleep away. So, like, I'm looking to the arts as always for my comfort, for my joy, for my sense of like, ugh, this is fucking awful, but we're all in it together. So, I know I talk about the uplifting community building power of the arts, and I'm just here to say, like, holy shit, I never need the arts as badly as I need them when things don't look good. So, Sheng Wang, thank you. Modest Mouse, thank you. All the people out there making escapist work or topical work or whatever it is, I love you and keep doing it. All right. So, the next ingredient in my recipe for mental health in hard times is connection. So I find connecting with people to be very nurturing. And I find that people are always kinder and conversations are always more nuanced when they're had in person or, on the phone, right? Text can go awry. You can start to feel bad if you text somebody and they don't text you back. We've all been there. I don't even think, text is an okay way to reach out, but I actually think phone calls are better if possible. And if you can get with people, be close enough to them that you can, share a hug, even better. So, connection as much as humanly possible, I think is a really good way to, share misery, share your feelings, have a good conversation, have a cry, whatever it is you need to have. I think that's a thing that I lean on so hard in times like this. And a corollary to that is I find social media to be particularly terrible when times are really dark. I made the mistake of venturing onto Instagram the day after the election and sharing some thoughts. And first of all, my timing was absolutely wrong. I am in trauma brain because of my own very devastating loss in Helene, and just knowing that my community of artists, four-fifths of us lost everything. I mean, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. And so this election, honestly, it is not hitting me in the same way it is hitting you, probably, if you're listening to this, because it is just going on this giant, heaping, smoldering pile of garbage in the background that is in the I will deal with you later pile, right? So, trauma brain, I am coming to learn from experiences like you just go numb. It's just all shock. It's all too much to absorb. And you just kind of don't even do feelings at all. And I realized, like, oh my God, at a time when so many people that I care so deeply about are really deep in their feelings for very good reason. I coming in with total emotional blankness, it's not the right vibe. It's not the right vibe. And while I really do want to talk about the election and I do want to share my thoughts and I do have thoughts for moving forward, now is not the time. Now is not the time for me to share them. One, because I am so traumatized. Two, because I am so emotionally blank that I cannot be in exactly the same space that might feel to you more appropriate emotionally. It's just not a good time for me to talk about it. Yeah, because I am in this like shock state. I've barely even begun to rise up into the wave of grief that I know is coming. So I'm going to do me. I'm going to do my political opinions only offline, only among friends and in person, and only in spaces where I know for sure that I'm not going to get a bunch of angry comments, where a misstep that I make is not going to cause somebody to want to flame down my business. So I'm just being a little more careful than I normally would be, just because, yeah, my brain is not in a good space right now. For negative feedback, I'm probably more prone to making big mistakes. I think it might be easy to misinterpret the fact that I don't seem very emotionally affected with it might be easy to misinterpret that and not realize that it's coming from a place of experiencing so much that I don't even have the option of feeling right now. And you know, if this sounds familiar to you, I would encourage you to maybe get that book, The Body Keeps the Score, maybe do a little reading on trauma, on your body's response to it. Like it's very real. It's very bizarre and sometimes counterintuitive. And I've been learning a lot about it and I find that interesting. I am an answer seeker and I find that it's interesting to me to read about what is happening in my body. Why the fuck do I feel no feelings when it seems like I should feel all the feelings? Oh, that is a protective response. And now I kind of get that better. So I do think that social media, the algorithm is built to center controversy. So the more you post a thing that's inflaming and raging, the more the algorithm will actually pick it up and send it around. And what does this do? This creates more of what I think is broken in our culture right now, right? It's contributing to the brokenness. And I am personally trying to at least stop making things bad before I gather the strength to help start making things better. So, you know, I don't think we need more controversy, more anger at each other, more disrespectful disagreement. Disagreement, of course, is fine, but, communicating with compassion and warmth and understanding each other's humanity, that's where it's at. And when you do that offline, you realize like that's how most people are wired to communicate in the first place. It's the stupid algorithms that want us to stay engaged and enraged that are making us focus on where we disagree. Whereas in real life, we really tend to focus on where we do agree, on our common ground. So I really can't emphasize enough how much getting offline, getting off anything with an algorithm is a great move for your mental health and maybe for the mental health of everyone else as well. I made a mistake there personally, and I got burned and I was like, I couldn't handle it and I didn't want to put it out in the world. So I have learned my lesson. I also want to say, if you identify as a person who is hyper engaged, if you consume a lot of news, I want to remind you that consuming news is not the same thing as making change, making political change. And you don't need to bathe in the news 24 hours a day or even 4 hours a day, right? So what really helped me in 2016 was studying up on how anxiety forms or what perpetuates anxiety. And yes, Instagram absolutely does. But consuming a lot of news about issues that are too big for you to handle and where you don't have any agency or control to change it will put you into a state of anxiousness and helplessness. And I don't see any value in that. Really, truly, I don't see any value in it. My personal opinion, and it's okay, you can disagree, but my personal opinion is I want to make a difference in the world. And part of what I need there is to show up healthy, right? That is actually important to do a good job helping the world. So to me, what puts me into a state of feeling agency and not feeling anxiety is action. So to me, my solution here is I want to change the ratio of input to output and radically increase my output towards political action, but radically reduce my input, right? There is no reason for me to have on news radio all day long, right? I have actually found that it diminishes my own capacity to do work when I do that because the news is so upsetting. Whereas if I focus on an issue that I really want to make a change in, and for me, this is economic empowerment, if I just stay laser focused on my issue and I doggedly pursue it, I can keep going with that for years and with strength and with power and with intelligence and nuance and expertise. And to me, that is the best way that I can serve you and my community and people that I care about. And yes, there are ways for me to pull that in to both indirect political engagement, but also direct political engagement. And so to me, focusing on where I want to make a difference and really being active, doing those things, that is what I want to do. And I want to do a lot less bathing and marinating in news about things I can't change. So I just want you to maybe think about that ratio of input to output in your life. And I really encourage you, if you're listening to horrible news and there's nothing you can do about it, I do actually encourage you maybe to take in a little less, right? You can update yourself once a week on the news. You don't even have to do it every day, really, truly. But if there is something in the news that upsets you and there is an action you can take, taking that action is going to make you feel better. Plus, it will actually do something in the world, right? So I encourage you to just think about what your capacity for action is and try to get it closer to the amount of input you're taking in so that they can match up better, because it's when they're really out of balance that you encourage a brain filled with anxiety and an inability to take action and a feeling of helplessness. So I know that one's kind of a hard one because I know a lot of us are news junkies. but I really want to encourage you. It's done a lot of good for my own mental health, my own sense of agency. And honestly, I think I've done quite a lot of good in this world, things that you know about because of sunlight tax, things you don't know about, like my political donations. And I also, on that note, a lot of us pay attention to national news. We read the New York Times, we listen to big podcasts like Jon Stewart or Ezra Klein. And national issues, sure, they're important, but they're also not everything. And your local elections are a place where, one, they tend to be much less partisan. They tend to be based much more in the actual issues, and you have so much more power. So, ironically, local issues are where most of us don't know nearly enough. We don't even know who represents us in city council, in our state legislatures, in our local government. And getting involved in local politics is a way to make massive change and to really feel how much agency you really have in the world. And I cannot encourage you enough to get involved in local politics because you will see, in fact, there are real people involved, flawed, but also who are so grateful for your skills, so grateful for your attention and your involvement. And you can make an enormous difference in politics at the local level and making really positive change in your community or your state. And I will even give you some evidence here. Although my state of North Carolina voted for Trump, and I do not feel happy about that, I made phone calls, I knocked on doors, I went out and did ballot curing for spoiled absentee ballots. I did poll grading. I did a lot of work to help in this election, but I know that although we didn't get the result at the top of the ticket that we wanted, that work made a difference, making sure that hideous candidate for governor, Mark Robinson, never saw the state house, that he did not make it in, and we got Josh Stein in for governor here. We had a lot of success in local elections. A lot of people split their ticket, yes, voted for Trump, and I am struggling to understand that, although I think it's important that I do. But a lot of people voted for Democrats and for people who have views that I frankly agree with and advocated for down the ticket. And we won in some areas and some races where it really mattered. So I'm not here to say that your work doesn't matter. I'm saying I wish more people were involved doing this work. And so, I hope that if you have the energy, that you will get involved in some local races, maybe even run for office one day yourself if you feel compelled. So, and lastly, I think it's a really good time to reflect on the kind of person that you want to be, that you feel yourself to be, where your values really are, where your joy is, and make sure that you hold those things tight and that you perpetuate those things in the world. I think when I see monstrous behavior out in the world, I think the worst possible outcome is for me to use that as an excuse to behave that way myself. My girls know that there is no possibility of giving me an excuse that says, well, everybody else was doing it. That does not fly in my household. My children are expected to uphold their values at all times, and it does not matter how many people around them are doing things that they know are wrong. It's not permission to do things they know are wrong. And I think that particular lesson in parenting, I think we could apply that outward in the culture and say, no matter how much darkness there is, please, please, please don't join the darkness. Be the light. I will leave it for you there. I'm having a beautiful image as I speak to you right now of these little lights in darkness everywhere across the United States of America, a place that I still really love and still really treasure, and I still am going to fight for. So thank you for being the light. Thank you for continuing to be the light. And I'm here to say, take a break, take a rest, hug a friend, reach out to somebody who needs it. Remember your values, remember who you are, and get a good night's sleep. Get a good night's sleep. Tend that machinery. All right. I am sending all of you peace and strength and love right now. We will get through this. It's going to be hard. We're going to need each other. Let's be good to each other. I'll see you on the next one. Bye. Thank you for listening. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review. It really helps, and share it with a friend. I'm so grateful. This podcast is for education and entertainment only. Nothing in this episode should be taken as individual tax or financial advice. You can find all the tools, books, and links we reference at sunlighttax.com/podcast.